Good evening everybody and welcome to the video. My name is Somil and in this video I'll be showing you how to essentially write infrastructure code for your step functions. Before this, if you don't know about me, hey everybody, I'm Somil. I love to make contents over YouTube and LinkedIn on AWS, step function, SNS, S3, anything related to AWS and Python. I simply love it. This video, let me share you how to essentially write infrastructure code for your step functions. Before that, if you are a complete beginner and if you have completely no idea what step function is, and maybe if you're trying to use step function in your company, I recommend watching these 8 videos. This 8 videos goes from 0 all the way to hero, essentially doing complex retry cat scenarios in step functions. So I'll leave all the resources in the description, but the goal of the video is to make essentially our step function through serverless framework. So let's get started. The task is pretty easy. Whenever you get an input, we want to fire up a lambda. This lambda will basically, if this lambda was okay, it will go to the second task and then it will go to the end state. But if the first task failed, we want to jump to the error task and then end the job. So very simple, step function. But again, the goal here is not on the state machine, but rather how do we write infrastructure code using serverless framework. I recommend you to install these two plugins, serverless plugin for pseudo-parameters and serverless step function. I'll leave all the resources, amazing documentation, very well done. And again, the Motiversity blog by Noah, right? So I'll leave all the resources, but let's focus on how to do this, okay? I'll try my best to zoom in as much as possible. So let's get started. So the first thing that you want to do is come to lab number 8. And if you observe, I have a file called handler.py. So in this file, I have 3 functions, which are my different lambda functions, right? And again, if you want to separate into a different file, you could do that, but just for the demo purposes. So I have a step 1, a state 1, state 2, and an error state, right? Now let's see how we write the YML file, right? So the first thing that we do on the top, we define the service. So you essentially define the name of the service. Here I'm defining the framework. .env means, in production, you don't essentially, you essentially put placeholders for for example, the name or the arn, etc. Right? So you put you inject env variables, right? But for now, I'm keeping it very bare minimum, right? Function, I have 3 lambda functions, step 1, step 2, and error state. So here you can see handler.step1, which means go to the handler and go to the first function, right? You could separate into multiple files, as I was saying, right? So these here are our 3 lambda function that I have created. Over here on line 27 to 29, I define my plugin saying that I'm using the serverless step function plugin and pseudo parameters. Now this is where all the magic starts happening. So here we say step functions and then we say state machine. Then you can give any fancy name that you like. And then you essentially start giving definition. So the first thing that you say in the definition is start at, which means where is your state machine going to start? I'm saying that I am going to provide a task called first task, right? So there is a task called first task, right? If I can show you first task, right? That's the name. I personally prefer camel case without spacing, just a good convention. And then you essentially start defining your states, right? So now I'm saying start at first task, which is over here, and don't get overwhelmed. It's very easy. So here we are saying type as task, which means when you say type as task, which means I want to fire a lambda function. Here we are saying resource, so which we are saying we are providing the arn of the lambda function. So this is a function in serverless. We are saying get attribute, and we are essentially gonna get the arn of the lambda function from here. So remember, we are saying here step 1, this one over here, right? I'm highlighting on line 20, and we are essentially grabbing the arn of that once it is created. Again, a retry logic is very easy here. We can simply use the word retry, and then you say on what error you want to retry. I'm saying when the task fail, retry after a backoff interval, right? Or I'm saying a second scenario, if anything in general fails, retry for me. So you could add as many retry in the retry block. Okay, so I'll collapse this again. And then I have a catch block. So here I'm saying if my particular task fails, right? Or in general, anything happens, I want you to go to a new task called error task. I want to publish an SNS, do whatever I want, right? But I want to essentially branch off from this, right? So here you can see if anything goes wrong, it will go to the error task. We are essentially defining that in the catch block, and we are still in the state function. If you see states, and then states can have 4 attributes: type, resource, retry, catch, and next, right? These are the basic one, right? Now, similarly, next is second task, right? We again define type as task, step 2, which means we are saying go here, grab the ARN, okay? And then we're saying end as true, which means after this, there's no further stuff, right? So we collapse that. And here is my error state, very simple. Now let's try to deploy the entire stack. SLS deploy, right? Very easy. Now this might take a little bit, second or two, depending upon your NPM packages, right? So now, as you can see, this is deploying my stack. I'll be patient here. And ideally, remember, whenever you do a development work, you want to learn this because this is important, right? All companies will ask you to write infrastructure code. They won't say go to production and just create through a console. No, that's not happening. So come here, as you can see, this machine, the state machine has been created. Start execution. I will just simply give a random message just to make sure things are working fine. Green means the first task was successful. This was the input, and this was the output, right? Now blue means this is currently the Lambda function is being executed, and as you can see, the input was this, the output, let me click here, output was this, right? And if this task failed, automatically it will go to the error task. I'll leave the entire source code, which is essentially lab number 8. And if you are interested to know more about step function, I recommend watching you all the labs from 1 to 8. Basically, this will give a complete idea about the step functions. I also have some popular design pattern in step functions. I hope you enjoyed this video and find value in contents, right? And if you did enjoy the video, a simple liking a video and sharing this video to the people who think you'll benefit will be great. All my videos, are free. So essentially, you don't have to pay for any courses. Simply watch the video, try the labs, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot about these step functions and all these other AWS services. Thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed. With that being said, keep smiling, and I'll see you guys next time.